Morning. We want to make the best use of everyone's time. So good morning. I'm Susan Kane. I'm the Vice President of Talent and Industry Partnerships at the MMAC, and I'd like to give my colleagues in our membership department a chance to introduce themselves. Steph?
Morning, everyone. Stephanie Hall from your membership division. Really glad to have you here and looking forward to today's program. Denise?
Denise Salamoni, member concierge. And when you joined, if it's been in the last few years, you and I have talked about what your goals are for membership. And since talent is one of those issues we always discuss, welcome this morning.
Great. Thanks all. So welcome to this very timely event, which we're offering as a response to the many questions we're hearing across our membership. In light of the unprecedented workforce shortage and the so-called Great Resignation, what are your peers doing to attract and retain talent when candidates have choices and talent seems to be in the driver's seat? Are companies adjusting compensation structures? How about incentives or bonuses? And what are companies doing to reduce turnover so that your recruiting efforts aren't a revolving door? We're fortunate to be joined by Evan Sohn, the chairman and CEO of Recruitercom. In a little bit, Evan will walk us through the trends impacting your recruiting efforts and how to be more successful in 2022. But first, on this morning's agenda, I'll take us through a quick dive into the current labor market dynamics and the results of a recent hot topics survey on trends related to wages and raises and incentives conducted earlier this month by our partner MRA, the Management Association. So let's dive in. This should come as no surprise to any of you in recruiting, but the job market nationally continues to be hot and trending upward. As of January 21st this year, U.S. job postings on Indeed.com were about 61% over the pre-pandemic baseline, which is February of 2020. That tick downward that you see in the last couple of weeks is most likely because of the surge of Omicron infections in the US. In Wisconsin, job postings have tapered off the high point early last summer, but job demand still sits much higher than pre-pandemic and 8% above where we were last year at this same time. So what jobs are the hottest in demand right now in the Milwaukee region? Here, this slide, our data reflects the 7-county region of Southeast Wisconsin. And no surprise, the highest number of postings in the last 6 months has been for registered nurses, with over 24,000 postings, reflecting almost 7,200 unique openings. A 3-to-1 posting intensity in that second column means that each job is posted 3 different times or in 3 different places. The second highest has been for hand laborers and freight, stock, and material movers. These are workers that move materials to and from storage areas, loading docks, delivery trucks, etc. Many work in warehouses and distribution, which is a growing sector in the Milwaukee region. Here, the posting intensity is a whopping 6-to-1, which is extremely high as this number goes. Posting intensity can almost be seen as a proxy for desperation level, as I'm sure any of you hiring for these positions can relate to. Customer service has about the same number of openings as laborers, but a smaller posting intensity of only 4-to-1, which may reflect that customer service jobs are easier to fill as they meet job seeker preferences for remote options and flexibility, but that's just my personal conjecture there. Demand is really high for digital jobs. You see computer occupations here at number 10 on this slide, and on the next slide, number 11, is software developers and testers. A little further down is stackers and order fillers, another job with high posting intensity, which reflects the continuing trend toward e-commerce versus in-person bricks and mortar retail. And it's not just consumers that are showing a preference for virtual interaction. Job seeker interest has shifted towards job postings that are more likely to be remote. As a result, job seeker interest in some in-person sectors like home health, manufacturing, and loading and stocking is well below the national trend. Those of you hiring for these roles may be struggling to find workers and may need to consider wage increases, hiring incentives, or extra benefits to attract new candidates. Wages have increased pretty significantly of late, although more so in the service sector versus in production. The latest worry is that inflation is eating away at those wage gains and reducing the incentive to work additional hours. So in order to help you benchmark how peer companies in Milwaukee are addressing the competitive recruiting market, we are fortunate to have a partnership with MRA, the Management Association. And many thanks to Zach Day and his colleagues on the survey team at MRA for separating out the Metro Milwaukee responses to this month's Hot Topics survey on wages, bonuses, and incentives, so that we can get a better sense of what's happening locally here. And as you can see, there was broad representation in the survey responses from companies of all sizes. If you want more information about the survey or results, there is a link right here at the top. And I know we have some in the audience today from MRA, so please feel free to put your contact information in the chat if you'd like people to follow up directly with you. So the first slide shows that a whopping 90% of companies have adjusted their pay ranges in their organizations for 2022 in order to help attract and retain talent. And here's evidence that companies are offering new hires starting salaries outside of established ranges in order to stay competitive. "71% of companies are offering referral bonuses when a current employee sources a successful candidate. In some cases, 14%, both the current employee and the new hire benefit from a referral bonus. According to the survey, the vast majority of those referral bonuses are paid out after 90 days of employment. When it comes to signing bonuses, most companies offer them in some shape or form. 63% offer them for all positions. Most make the first payment after 30 or 90 days. But you can see here that some require up to a year or more of employment before the benefit is received, or the entire benefit is received. If an employee does not meet the terms of the signing bonus, most respondents prorate that bonus to the time of service and may require the employee to pay back part of that bonus that was prorated. About 58% of companies are offering incentive bonuses based on company profitability, meeting the team or the department's goals, meeting production goals, etc. Most of these bonuses are paid annually, while some are paid out quarterly. And the vast majority of companies are offering retention bonuses and attendance bonuses in some shape or form as well. Here is that link again for more information about MRA's Hot Topics survey and the results that we shared today. Thanks again to our partners at MRA. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our guest expert, Evan Sohn, the Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Recruiter.com, an on-demand recruiting platform that combines AI and video job matching technology with the world's largest network of small and independent recruiters. Evan is a frequent contributor to CNBC and Yahoo Finance and demonstrates expertise in a diverse set of industries. A mission-driven leader, Evan is also the co-founder and vice president of the Sohn Conference Foundation. Now, we do have time set aside for Q&A after Evan's presentation, but given the size of this group, we will collect your questions in the chat. So anytime during the presentation, please put your questions directly in the chat, and we'll present as many as we can to Evan after his presentation during the Q&A. Welcome, Evan. Thank you so much for being with us today from your location in New York, I think.
Yeah, Tenafly, New Jersey, right outside New York. But
Okay,
thank you so
okay.
much, Susan, and really welcome. Thank you for welcoming me to the to this great event. You had some really good charts. I'm going to steal some of your charts for future conversations. Hey, so the topic here really is, what are we doing? How are we going to weather this great resignation? Is there really a great resignation? What's next? And we'll sort of muse around over the next few minutes. So really, thank you guys so much. I think you guys are driving the screen, so let's just jump right in. Hey, so, this is a great quote. I think we wrote it actually, about 2 months ago. Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank wrote an article that said, hey, begging employees, please stay at your current job or at your new employer for at least 24 months. So just incredible, right? So we all grew up, and I'm a little bit older than most of you. You had a parent or a grandparent that said, look, your first job, you got to stay there at least 4 years, 5 years, 2 years. You don't want to be that job hopper. And I think if we start at the end of this talk, it would be that the job hopper economy is really here to stay. And we're going to talk about some of those things, what we could be doing about that, et cetera. And these were all things that were really coming pre-pandemic. So if we go under the premise that COVID has changed everything, that's okay. Just skip over. It's good. That COVID's really changed everything. This is really happening before, and here we are. And so the end result is that things have really changed. There was a great article in the Wall Street Journal a couple weeks ago. Nobody wants to be an assistant manager. How crazy is that? That job you got, you're the assistant manager of the store. No one wants to be an assistant manager. Everyone's looking at their careers as just, very, very different. And things have actually changed. I grew up in a world where, there's no problem you couldn't solve without money. And now it's, I want work-life balance. I want new experiences, obviously remote work. So things have really changed for the actual career path for individuals. By the way, Susan, it's very simple. When I breathe, that's probably when you'll move the slide ahead. So, I think if you look at the macro events that have really affected the economy, every time there's been a macro event, the economy has adjusted to it, and we actually haven't moved backwards. I'll give you some examples. In the actual entrepreneur, when did this actually start? Grandpa, the notion of an entrepreneur back when was really opening up a store, right? That was actually, I'm going to be, I'm a retailer. I'm going to open up a store. I'm going to sell something. That's really what the entrepreneur really was. In Black Monday, so October 19th, 1987, we really went from a stable economy to all of a sudden an entrepreneurial economy as well. Why? Because everyone saw that those jobs that happened, jobs that existed in the financial sector, this is, Black Monday, 1987, all of a sudden, people lost their jobs. So this notion of, well, I got to work at Lehman Brothers, I'm working at Shearson Lehman and Shearing, all these other places, and people watched their parents lose their jobs. And all of a sudden now that sparked the actual entrepreneur. So this is actually anyone born before 1964. So Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk really were there. They watched their parents' friends lose their jobs. That never happened before in our econ. And again, I'm generalizing, but this was actually something that never, ever happened before. I was working at a financial firm and all of a sudden I lost my job. And that's really what became this overall entrepreneurial economy. And by the way, keep going, right? So you start to see Y2K. We'll talk about that in a second. It's okay, move over, don't worry about it. We saw Y2K, right? So all of a sudden now, 1999, 98, oh my God, I got to update software. Let's actually go get outsourced IT services to do it. And guess what? Cognizant, Infosys, all these companies, Tata, really started in the Y2K fashion. And we continue to outsource our call centers there, outsource our IT. Call centers started getting outsourced in the mid-90s when there was pressure in the 1994 recession on overall salaries. These things have actually happened. How many people used to pay someone to manage their data center, right? All of a sudden now we're using Amazon Web Services and Azure and other areas. So every time there's been these macro events, we've actually moved things and we haven't actually brought them back. So let's go look at a little bit of a history lesson. And I'll breathe for a second, but let's go to the next slide. this really started. So when did talent professional models really start? They really started sort of post-World War II. So you had the factories going on, and this is really when things started to happen. You know, the great days of Jack Welch and General Motors and General Electric and all these other companies really started to say, gee, we're going to have talented people, not just on the line themselves, but we're going to have this progression of people, line managers, et cetera. Let's go to the next slide. And we started to invest in our talent. We started to look at talent. Gee, the most important thing is my talent. I'm going to invest in my talent. I'm going to send this whole group of people to go get trained and the management training, et cetera. You know, I had an old friend of mine who I worked with 35 years ago, who was an IBM salesperson. And I remember saying to him, John, are you unique? And he goes, not even a little bit. You know, I was in a class of 200, salespeople that were trained by IBM. We had this model that we were trained, and they were investing in these things. And we started to look at talent for the first time, sort of post-World War II, as something that we invested in. We're grooming the next generation, the next group of talent. Let's move on. And all of a sudden now we started to see these entrepreneurs. So Black Monday, entrepreneurs start to come. That meant that, gee, I can now start to define my own life. I don't only want to work in a big factory or in a big company. I want to now go create this. And by the way, it's very interesting. Entrepreneurs, and I was talking about this before, really isn't that old, right? This notion of an entrepreneur, you didn't really hear about. I grew up, the wealthiest guy in town wrote a piece of software in the early 70s that he sold to ADP. That was like the one story that you heard. And it wasn't people going out there and starting their own business. And by the way, entrepreneur, not just, the person that starts a .com or a venture-backed company, but the person who's running their own side hustle, right? 35% of all adults today have some sort of side hustle. Everyone is now an entrepreneur. So many people are becoming entrepreneurs as they're doing these things on their own, making money on their own. And that's actually affecting the overall talent landscape. So what is the new normal? This is the new normal. When you look at the numbers themselves, this notion that I think 60% of all millennials have no problem leaving a job within the first 6 months. 35% of all adults have a side hustle. I think 50% of all millennials have a side hustle. And this is normal. Right? No, we've been tracking through our monthly recruiter index, candidate sentiment, and you would think that, the number one priority would be compensation. Compensation is now down to like under 30% as a first priority. So work-life balance, new experiences, these are really the new normal things. The other thing that were happening before COVID, and you really came out from the left coast, so Silicon Valley, I spent a bunch of years there, is it was regular occurrence for you to see someone 12 years on their resume and they've been at 3 or 4 companies. This was not a bad person. This was a hot person. This was actually someone that was really a software engineer that was in high demand. This was the new normal. And the notion that an individual is going to have one job for the next 25 years is not normal. In fact, I would ask you to, close your eyes for a second and move the clock back 4 years ago. And 4 years ago, you saw a resume of a 30-year-old who had been at the same company for a decade. And you would use terms like committed and loyal and steadfast and climbing the ropes, et cetera. If you actually saw a 30-year-old's resume today who had been at the same company for a decade, and let's assume it's not Goldman Sachs or McKinsey or something, you'd probably use terms like risk averse, not interested in trying new things. How come no one wants this person? And the reason is it's so easy to apply for a job today. Applying for a job is a click button. You saw job openings go up. It's incredible. It's so easy to apply for a job. If anyone has college age kids, it was so simple now. In my day, it was such a pain in the neck to apply to college. Now you click on buttons, click, $50 for an application, common app. It's so easy to apply for college applications. And so all of a sudden now you're looking at, it is so easy to apply for a job. So how do we interview for a job? Let's actually look at what interviewing was like 3 years ago or 4 years ago. Susan brought a suit to work and someone said, Susan, where are you going? Oh, my uncle's wife's funeral. Right? It's really sad. I got to go to a funeral. Everyone's going to funerals, right? And she's leaving for the afternoon. She's going to a funeral. We're all saying sorry. The next day, she's getting phone calls from a headhunter. Susan, is everything okay? Oh yeah, it's my mom's calling. She's really upset about the funeral. We're carrying that lie. And by the way, the expression it's a full-time job to find a job would not be offered in January of 2022, right? Just would not be offered today because it's too easy to apply for a job. In fact, there's 65 people on the call. I bet at least 6 people are interviewing for a job today because it's just so easy to apply for a job. It's a 15-minute Zoom screen. It's just so easy to do. So it's easy to apply. It's easier to interview. If we're working remotely or hybrid, everyone has more time on their hands now. So who doesn't have 15 minutes to do an interview for a day? It's just so simple. If the company's allowing work from anywhere, I could be anywhere. So, Alexis might have looked at jobs that historically and said, oh my God, I'd love to work there, but I'm not going to move my family. Can you imagine a company today? And again, I'm talking about knowledge workers who must have Alexis work for them. They must have Alexis work for them. Say, oh, I can't have Alexis work for me because she's not willing to physically move her entire family. It just for the most part, just wouldn't happen today, right? Because everyone is now more valuable than they were 2 years ago. Everyone, from the chief product officer to the developer, to the person willing to walk into a restaurant or a factory, everyone is more valuable today. Let's move on to the next slide. So what's next? What's next, I think, as we start to look at, everyone's an entrepreneur, talking to employees as if they're an entrepreneur. Hey, what's the next experience that you want? What balance do you want? How do I keep you here for longer? And we're looking at outcomes. I joke around, not really joking. Not too long ago, you'd get an email. Susan would send me an email at 11:30 at night, and I would go, wow, Susan must be working hard. She's working late hours. If I get an email from Susan at 11:30 at night today, my assumption is she took off the evening. She took off the afternoon. She's hanging out with her family. She's doing whatever she wants to do and is finally coming back online at 11:15 at night to just clear out the day and send me an email. We're moving into an outcomes-based and performance-based society. Now, I come from sales. We were always doing that in sales, right? If you missed your number, it was hard to say, well, I put a lot of hours in last week. Right. And no one really cares how many hours you put in if you get the deals closed. So we really start to see the outcome-based performance societies. And I think we're moving away from clocking in and clocking out into a really, how do we make sure we're measuring something? If you can't measure it, you can't monitor it. Keeping that remote work-life balance, not expecting everyone to be connected at all times. And I think these are the things that employees are now looking for. You got to say to them, what sort of balance do you want? By the way, we're actually promoting at our own company. We have about 70 people in the company today. I call them 80% jobs. I want to hire someone for 80%. I want 80% of your time. I want 4 days a week or, 4/5 of your time, however you want to do that. This way, we're building in this work-life balance. I know there are a lot of slides, so let's just keep going. We'll go through them all. So there's some really good ones. All right, so let's go through our predictions for 22. So first prediction for 22, and it's already January. So we believe it's still going to be an employee's job market, certainly for, at least the first half of the year. We do believe that, you'll see that, as I said, everyone's more valuable. People are looking to leave. You look at Goldman Sachs reported their numbers about 2 weeks ago, and the biggest expense that they had was in employee hiring and retention. I think more money will be spent on hiring in 22 than ever before. And it's because it is an employee's job market. Everyone is still more valuable than they were 2 years ago and before the pandemic. Not too long ago, we were talking about the efficacy of working remotely. Who does that now? Like, who talks about the efficacy of working remotely? But I think the opportunity now is people who want to work remote are going to be able to work remote. And companies that embrace remote are going to say, look, we're working remote today. And whether they say we're always in the office on 3 days and everyone takes off 2 days, whatever those are, but this is now no longer up for conversation. A company saying we don't offer remote work is acknowledging that they don't want to have people there, but this is no longer this discussion purposes, is remote work effective or not? It's really about the company deciding what sort of culture do I want to create. So I said this before, but like right now, work from anywhere is really very candidate centric, very employee centric. Suzanne can go anywhere. Alexis can go anywhere and still work for the company. We believe that this will really morph later this year to hire from anywhere. I'm very scared now about my own employees. So I'm making a really good opportunity. So I keep the non-regrettable churn to a low number. But eventually I'll start to say, you know what? If people are only coming in once a month anyway, and they want to work from anywhere, well, you know what? I'll hire people that aren't in the US. I'll hire people from, or I'll hire people from Arkansas, at a less rate than hiring people from my local area. Or, hey, I'll get people that are in Latin America or Canada. So in their same time zone, or certainly in the same, in the same geographic side of the planet, but at a less price. And so hire from anywhere really is empowering me as an employer to say, look, I need to fill these roles with anybody who's willing to work for me. So I'm going to hire from anywhere around the world. I think diversity is playing a very significant role. We're making a lot of investments in data around the diversity side of our overall software. And I think companies are saying, look, we want to hire, we want to rebuild our teams, but we want to do them in the right way. Companies are now, they're companies that have strict investment criteria for investing only in companies that adhere to diversity rules. And you're going to see this play a much bigger role throughout 22. And I think building a community, how do you create culture? What do you got to do there? Do you these, we reported on CNBC, the first times I saw a remote work from hire, chief remote work from hire, chief remote work role officer, right? So this notion of how do you continue to build culture. And I think, what's really empowering for companies is it used to be that companies had a balance. This group wants to work remote. This group wants to be in person. And by the way, don't think that everyone wants to work remote. There's a very significant percentage of people that want to work in person. I think 40% of people's friends come from work. That's some statistic like that. They want to have that interpersonal relationships, et cetera. And I think that companies are now saying, gee, if I'm going to build a culture, how do I build a culture? How do I sell culture over online? How do I convince you that we have this great work experience and great work environment if we're all working remotely? Now, there are companies that address this for years. Companies that were sales organizations or consulting firms where always had people around the planet working for them. They had to build a culture, yet people were remote, virtual environments, et cetera. And I think these are really important things for people to really think about as the world returns to what will be called the new normal. So let's look at today's challenges. Today's challenges really are, how do you find talent, how do you engage it, and how do you retain? Let's just build out the next slide. It's pretty good then. So thanks. I think these really are the challenges that we're dealing with today. You're going to see typically in the US, there was a 22% turnover in companies. So if there are 170 million people working in the US, 20% of them, 22% on an annual basis, were turning over from a voluntary perspective. Everyone expects that number to increase. This is why it's called the Great Resignation and the job proper economy. We're going to see these numbers really start to scale. So how do you find talent? How do you find talent when how do you find talent when the job market is so tight? 3.9% unemployment numbers. It's getting, incredibly tight to do that. And then how do you retain them? How do you ensure that people are staying on longer than you expected? How do you make sure they're doing that? How do you keep people longer than the 24 months? And how do you engage them? How do you create these structures where they're not looking to interview? They don't pick up the phone to look for a new opportunity. I always say that you pick up a phone from a headhunter or a company or a hiring manager when you question your probability of success. Well, how do you change that? How do you stop people from looking elsewhere for opportunities? How do you create new structures for them and exciting opportunities? That's really is the challenge in doing those things. And then as part of that whole process. Next slide. Excellent. So not bad. Did that a pretty not too bad time. I think we have some time, Susan, for some questions if you want to just rattle them off.
So Evan, I was watching the chat. So one question was, how are companies taking a more intentional approach to diversity as strategic advantage versus diversity as obligation?
Yeah, so I really say you got to start at the top of the funnel, right? So it's not about, gee, I had 5 finalists that came through, one's diverse, 4 are not, so I'm going to go hire the one that's diverse, even though they're less qualified or, not as qualified as everyone else. I think you really got to start at the top of the funnel. Let's actually look for, hey, if I want to have Java developers, I want to make sure that the slate of Java developers that I'm looking at contain diverse folks. So I know that they're at the top of the funnel. And, you know, I'm trying not to plug recruiters so much, but that's what our software actually does. You know, so we are really, I think you got to really start at the beginning of the process and do that. You really have to do that at the beginning, at the top of the funnel, if you will.
All right, another question regarding that theme of friends at work. So how do you predict that element will be impacted by the shift to higher percentages of more remote workforce?
Yeah, so you know, I don't want to predict that we're going to go to a more remote workforce yet. You know, I think that companies get to define what they want. And I think individuals will say, hey, look, I only want to work for a company that is going to have in person because I want to build relationships that way. I think you're going to have, you know, if you have pop-up restaurants, I think, you know, I'm a huge fan of WeWork. And I think that you're going to start seeing, you know, what we're calling it local hiring, global hiring, right? I'm going to hire people from one area, even though we're all remote and hybrid. I want you guys to like have a good relationship. So get together at a local WeWork once a week or once a month, et cetera. So creating those cultures. And I think there's no longer a playbook. I think there'll be lots of different playbooks associated with these things, right? So if I could hire anywhere, well, why not have just people in Milwaukee or in the greater Milwaukee area with no location, no office, but hey, let's all get together in a certain area. So I still have that flexibility of workers. I still have that flexibility of staff. And yet, you know, we could create some sort of culture. But by the way, I heard a podcast the other day. It was an engineer, you know, who started a company, and he goes, look, our culture was very simple. Get your work done and then go hang out with your family. You know, they were not doing coffee runs and beer Friday nights and pizza parties. You know, they were like, get your work done and go home. And I think what's exciting is that we get to create the culture that we want to create as a company, right? As employers, you get to now define what your culture is and attract people that way. And by the way, I think that, you know, the other question then is finding the talent now is not just about finding someone with the skills that you want, but actually finding someone that wants the culture that you want. You know, if I want to hire Steph and I want Steph in the office because I believe in an in-person culture and Steph only wants to work remote, it's not going to work. I'm not then going to hire Steph, and Steph's not going to be interested in that job. And I think it creates, you know, talent acquisition changes its dynamic then. I'm not just looking for someone with the skills, but I'm looking for someone who aligns with the culture that I want to create. A little long-winded, but I think that's a really good answer.
All right, so another question for you. So how can companies adjust frontline roles to allow for some remote flexibility?
I would say you got to shift to an outcomes-based company, right? I don't care how much time you put in, but how are you doing against the measurement that you're going to have? You know, the notion that you're watching someone in the office all the time and they're working hard and they're pulling their hair out and, you know, they think they're doing a great job. That was great when we're in a clock in, clock out society, which is, by the way, how we start, you know, the whole factory model was really about clock in, clock out, get your job done and leave, right? And it was clock in, clock out, and you had to deliver a certain number of widgets a day. We're moving away from that. We're going into an outcomes-based society. So I would probably say to that individual, hey, look, here's what I want you to, let's work on it together. What do you want to accomplish together on a daily basis or on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis? And let's create an environment that lets you get that done, whether you're in person or not in person.
And then you mentioned earlier that compensation is only important to about 30% of candidates. What are the other important factors?
Work-life balance, new experiences, and remote work. So, you know, I think that what that says is, hey, look, you know, what's the experience I'm giving them? Am I helping them grow, right? What skills do I want them to learn here? And sitting down with your people and going, look, where do you want to be in a year? How do I help you get there? I think those are really, really, you know, important things to have.
So how do you suggest approaching industries that are inherently clock-based? So retail or hospitality, where these remote pivots aren't available?
I go to a 4/5 job then, right? Hey, you know, look, this is a 4/5 job. Or, hey, you know, or it's an entry-level job. What's the bench? Or, hey, guess what? This is an entry point. You're only going to do this for 2 years. You're only going to do this for 1 year, and build an environment where it's easy to train people up because you're going to move them out to go do something else in terms of the experience that you want. It's really, there's no one size fits all anymore. It's really got to be, you know, much more dynamic in terms of what that environment is. And that individual, call me up and we'll talk about it. You know, what the specific what the specific situation is, and we sort of muse around there together. Hey, Steph, I got time for one more question, okay?
All right. So essential workers have seemingly run for the exits. What is the answer to staffing or pulling essential workers back?
You know, I think the 4/5 thing, hey, look, you know, I'm going to create a balance for you guys. I think it's hard, right? There's a huge demand for healthcare workers, yet they're resigning at the fastest rates possible. It's hard to do that. It just is. And maybe it's not just compensation, or maybe it's experience. It's maybe, hey, work here for 2 years, and then I'll go send you to one of our other locations. You know, where else do you want to go? And I think tapping into those things, you know, I think are important, right? If I'm a hospital network and I have a hospital in Florida and I have a hospital in Milwaukee, hey, do you want to go to Florida for 6 months? Great, work here for 2 years, then you go to Florida for 6 months. Again, you know, you got to think out of the box, knowing that it's not just about money, and it's about experience. It's about, you know, work-life balance, about these things. And I would create a menu structure that works for, you know, for these environments, for these folks. All right. Last thing is, I just saw from Kathy, I'm not surprised at all by regrettable turnover. Not even a little bit. I'm really not. You know, it's been a big buildup when people stayed put during COVID, and, you know, the company says, come back full time. I never want to come back full time. I lost my grandma was my caregiver for my children. And grandma doesn't want to go out of the house anymore because she's too scared. There's so many reasons why people are resigning today. You know, there's probably one reason they want the job, but there are a lot of reasons why they're resigning. And by the way, don't think for a moment that the gig economy has not taken over, right? With someone who used to work at 2 factory jobs, you know, one during the day, maybe one at night or one on weekend, and now is working 1 factory job, and they're driving DoorDash at night or Uber on the weekends. They're not showing up anymore. And, you know, and I actually think that, you know, some of the numbers that we're looking at are old school numbers. The BLS numbers, the Bureau of Labor Statistics numbers, started in the numbers that you see once a month, it came out in 1939. Now that made a lot of sense when a person had a job for their whole life. You got a job, we're done. You know, but there's so many dynamics moving in the job marketplace. And I think what's the exciting part for everybody is we get to redefine what the next 10 years look like. So creating, what are our priorities? How do we move away from a time-based society to an outcome-based society? Again, if that's the company, if it's health-oriented, how do we make a job not sound like it's an assistant manager job? How do we make it sound exciting? There are lots of people that are looking for jobs. How do we make sure are we training better? So we only want people coming out of college with no experience, because we're going to train them and we're going to get them for at least 2 years, and we'll put them on a path that way. I think we have lots of opportunity to rethink the way that we hire talent, engage our employees, create culture, and retain them, and succeed as an overall commerce association. So with this in mind, I'm really sorry about that. I'm getting called by someone else, so really, really sorry about that, guys. This was fantastic. Welcome the opportunity, Susan and staff and the whole team, to come back. And anyone who has additional questions, you know, feel free to send them over. I'm only available 24/7. So really just 24/7.
We really appreciate your time with us on a Monday morning, and get back to your day. Thanks so much for
thanks so much, guys. Really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.
Great. Now stay on, everybody else. We've got a few more slides to get through. I also wanted to call out, there was a slide that I had originally in the beginning, and then I eliminated it, but it's about the retirement rates having been accelerated during COVID. And then we're not seeing the typical unretirement that tends to happen, where an individual who has exited the workforce maybe you know, gets bored and comes back and takes a part-time role, or maybe a frontline role, maybe in retail or hospitality. And that is not happening at the rates that it normally does. So I wonder if that's another opportunity for those of you looking to adjust those frontline roles and make them more amenable to everybody, but think in the back of your mind about how to make them attractive to unretirees. Okay, so we want to promote the next session in this series of New Year, New Talent Strategy. Will be Monday, February 28th, this same time, 9:30 to 10:30. And the topic is going to be how to retain women in the workplace during and after COVID-19. And our guest will be Kimberly Kane with Kane Communications Group. And the Kane Insights team has just released the results of some research they did on the perception of women in the workplace, and the likelihood that women will be part of this great resignation that we're seeing. And the numbers in Wisconsin that King Communications found were significantly higher than the national numbers in terms of women expressing the likelihood that they may wish to resign and find another role. And the number one reason was a sense of being undervalued. So we'll dig into that and to how companies can look at new strategies to change that dynamic, make women feel more welcome, and build a workplace that turns you into an employer of choice or a talent magnet rather than a place where your employees want to resign. Something else I really wanted to plug today was, we have these sessions which are always on the most urgent needs that we're hearing about within our membership, but we're building out a solutions directory that will be with you 24/7 on your own time, searchable when you need solutions, when you need help. So if you need more help in any number of areas of your talent strategy, talent attraction, how to advance and develop talent, or how to partner with organizations that are preemptively preparing future talent in the pipeline, check out our growing talent solutions directory. The link the URL is at the bottom, talent solutions directory, MMAC.org. And this is what that landing page looks like. So we have service providers listed in each one of those three categories. If you are a provider and you want to get listed in the directory, here's your way in. That link at the bottom here, tsdlisting.html, is how you would begin to fill out the form to put your own listing in the directory under any one of these categories again. So under Attract, we have a number of service providers that help with staffing, with marketing open positions, with assessments, employment law, and you can see the others. And then as we go down into Attract and Prepare, different solution providers that help in any number of those bullets. So get listed by going to that URL at the bottom. And I wanted to show you what an example of a directory listing looks like. And no surprise, we picked out Recruiter.com, who was gracious enough to join us today. This is a mishmash of what their listing looks like. This is not exactly how it looks because I didn't want to go out to live internet, but this is sort of a mishmash of how the elements of a listing end up looking. So we stumbled on this listing by searching under, oops, I'm so sorry what happened here. Searching under attracting talent, marketing open positions. And we have some contact information for the direct contact that you want to reach in Milwaukee. This is really key. This is not the yellow pages. The Talent Solutions Directory is designed to get you to the exact right person who is in business development or in customer service for the exact service that you're looking for. There's an opportunity to contact them directly, which then will go back to our, it will show as a referral from the MMAC and from our talent directory. And then listers have an option for lots of different information. You can see that Recruiter.com submitted a video, which is great. You may click on that on the website, not here, but they also were able to include, how they help you, what their services are all about, and can embed some recruiting messages in some custom materials. I know Mark is in the audience today, so I hope you see that we include your contact information and visibility. But
on my good side, thanks, Susan.
You bet, you bet. And that's all we have for you today, unless there are other questions that I can answer. I know Evan had to leave, but if there's something you have from the beginning of the presentation, we'd be happy to answer that. Again, thank you to Mark and to Recruiter.com and to Evan. And also thank you again to our partners at MRA for that, allowing us to use that custom research that they were able to pull just for the Milwaukee market. And I saw in the chat that Kathy Crone had put her contact information in. If you're looking to get the results of that survey, it's broader than just the Milwaukee market, but we also do have that poll that I think we are allowed to release to you, and we may, with MRA's permission, include that in the follow-up materials that come along with this presentation. Well, I think that's it then. Appreciate your time on this Monday morning. And don't hesitate to reach out to me or to any member of our membership team if you have ideas or needs for future talent solutions sessions or other programming at MMAC. Have a great week, everyone.